Okay. So about me, my undergrad is computer engineering, and I have an MBA in sustainability. I used to have more of a personal identity before I started Chick Tech. It is all now Chick Tech. So let me tell you about that. Chick Tech is a national nonprofit headquartered here in Portland. Our mission is basically to get and keep girls and women in high tech. We do that by offering opportunities and support to girls who wouldn't otherwise choose technology, support to women who are already in technology, and we're working to change the culture so that it's more welcoming to anyone who would like to be in it. So first, we're going to look at a couple statistics just to set the stage to look at the problem. A lot of you have probably seen some of these statistics. As you can see, there's plenty of more household names that have released their numbers of women in technology since I think they started in June or so. They started almost like confessing how many women they had in their company. You can see that eBay, on this list, eBay's almost 25%, down to Twitter, probably 8-10%. And then Qualcomm, which this is not a company reported number. This is the number of engineers in the Qualcomm Austin office. I don't know how familiar you are with Qualcomm. Since I was a hardware engineer, I was a little bit more familiar, but they would have more people in hardware, and they clock in at about 5%. So let's look at a couple statistics from our local companies. They're not too much different. I chose to keep these anonymous because I didn't want to call anybody out. The point wasn't to point any fingers, but just to look at, we're not any better here. We're not doing better than Facebook or Apple or Google, right? So we have one company that's doing quite well at 24%. And then we have another company that's down at 4%. And one thing that I found that was really interesting, I didn't have a lot of time to gather these statistics, but what I found was interesting was the companies who were too nervous to give out their numbers. And I feel like that says more about the state of women in technology than the actual numbers themselves do. Regardless, I think that numbers can only tell a very small, very unemotional side of the story. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to share with you some stories that I have heard in the 3 years that I've been running Chick Tech. First of all, I'd like to set a few ground rules. At the end, when I take questions, there are a couple things that I will not discuss or I will not take questions on. I don't feel like talking about whether these anecdotes are valid. That's not going to get us anywhere. These are true stories. Discussing whether they are valid or not, or whether you feel that they are valid or not, does not move the cause forward. Same thing with minimizing the women's experiences. That just makes me angry. So let's not do that one. Along with the third one, it's attempting to let those women know that they acted wrong and they should have done it differently, and then some bad things wouldn't have happened to them. So one of the reasons that we're talking about this, so we're going to be talking about some of the bad things that happen, some of the bad things that women go through. And one of the reasons that we're doing this is because we at Chick Tech, how many people are here who are at Chick Tech, who have volunteered at Chick Tech, part of Chick Tech? Good. Thank you for coming and supporting. We get asked a lot, but why? Why do women leave technology? Which is a completely valid question, and we absolutely understand why it's being asked. But even when I was looking at doing this talk, I ran it past a few other people, and they said, no, you can't talk about the bad things. That's not okay. You need to be positive. You need to tell people the good things that are happening, the progress that is being made, and you can kind of maybe mention that bad things sometimes kind of happen. And that wasn't the talk that I wanted to give. Everybody gives that talk, right? And that is not, at this point, what I want you to hear about. I want people to listen to these women's stories and let them have a voice. So I have three things that I'm going to be discussing tonight. The first one bad apple spoils the barrel. I'm sure you have all heard this phrase before, and I've seen this a lot in technology. Most of the people are really awesome. Most of the people are really cool, really supportive, but it only takes one. It only takes one to ruin everyone's experience. So I came up with an analogy. I like analogies. So say you're at a party, and this is a really cool party. They have top shelf liquor. It's in a mansion. It's amazing, right? And everybody's pretty cool, but there's one person who's following you around. They're kind of pushing you. They're telling you how much you suck. They're telling you that nobody really likes you, that you're not really welcome here. Everybody else is just being nice and polite. You're not good enough to be at their party. Who would leave this party if you knew if you knew that there was a better party, not better in terms of better alcohol, not better in terms of a better place, but better in terms of you knew everybody was going to be welcoming. Your friends, or who you thought were your friends, weren't sitting there pretending nothing was happening, not standing up with you saying this is not acceptable behavior. At this other house that you could go to, they will stand up for you. They will be at your side, and they will help you get through anything that you're having troubles with. Who would move to that other house? Yep. And that is a lot of times what it feels like in technology for women right now. It doesn't feel like everybody's against you, but most of the time, nobody's really comfortable enough to stand up to people who are being the bad apple. They just want the person to go away. It's not directly affecting them most of the time, but it really is, right? It's really affecting the quality of our industry. So I have two anecdotes for one. One is standing up for other women. So most women that I meet are really amazing. They really want to stand up for other women. Sometimes bad things happen to them when they do. So this woman, I'm going to call her Angela, which is obviously the picture is also not her. So this is somebody that I met while I was traveling to another city not too long ago. And I actually contacted her over her website. She had the stupid little chat thingies that I never ever used, but it was like 9:00 at night and just looked like she was online. So I was like, why not? And she was really weird over the chat. And I'm like, well, that's weird, and so we ended up setting up a call. And when I talked to her on the phone later, it turns out, not later that night, it wasn't like 10:00 at night. That'd be weird. The next day when I talked to her on the phone, it turns out that it wasn't that she didn't want to talk to me about Chick Tech or about our expansion plans. It turns out that what had happened over the last month or so was that she had gained a stalker. So she had been part of a discussion online, and there were some people who were really trolling this other woman and calling her a slut for no reason, over and over again. And she chose in the comments to say, what are you talking about? Why would you even say that? And just that is all it took. She's active in the tech community. This guy ended up stealing her identity online. So he started pretending to be her on social media, leaving comments on different places, pretending to be her, and trying to interact with her in all different ways, pretending to be different random people. And that's who she thought I was. So she didn't want to be rude on chat just in case, but she thought that I was this creepy stalker guy pretending to be somebody else. And that is an issue, right? Because that is effectively silencing her voice. And the fear of that is often what silences a lot of women's voices. And one of the statistics that I've seen in the last 6 months or so is that for every 3 hostile or negative or trolling comments that a male avatar will get online, a female avatar will get 100. So it's not, women get trolled a little bit more. It is women get trolled a ridiculous amount. And when I look at these things and I read the comments on different articles, I can completely understand why women don't want to stand up for other women online and they don't want to put themselves out there, because the emotional stress that this woman is going through and the emotional stress that other women are going through online oftentimes isn't worth it. And it is unacceptable that in 2015, we are allowing people like that guy to silence half of the population. So that brings me a little bit closer to home. We have a special person who may or may not be here tonight, I don't know, we'll call him a male rights activist. So this person has been going to women in technology events the last few weeks. And wait, I wrote this down so that I don't get off topic too much with it. To harass and bully attendees. His presence is toxic and makes men and women uncomfortable. And it is crazy that in 2015, there is not really anything we can do. We cannot, legally, it is hard to kick someone out of an event without involving certain things, right? Sorry, this is a very irritating, frustrating thing for me right now. But what I wanted to let that person know, if he is here or if he will be watching this later, women in Portland in technology are at this party. We are here to stay. You cannot kick us out and we will not leave. So what's scary about these different things with the trolls and the bullies online, and even obviously in person, is that we don't know who will be next. We don't know. I don't know if I will be targeted after this talk. A woman doesn't know if she's going to put a comment that will cause her to be targeted, just like the other lady. We don't know. When we put ourselves out there and we talk about these issues, we could be causing lasting harm to our reputation online. We could be, I don't know if people have heard of being doxxed. Has everybody heard of being doxxed? Does anybody want me to explain it? Yes. So being doxxed is when somebody takes your personal information and puts it online for people to see. So this could be your social security number. This could be your personal address. This could be where your children go to school. This could be anything, personal photos. This could be, an ex-boyfriend who may have intimate photos, putting those online. And this has happened to multiple people. This is a big, within the gaming industry, this has happened to several women not that long ago, where they are making it personal. They are bringing it home to their families, and they are bringing children into it. They are bringing husbands and wives into it. And that's scary. And we should not be having to deal with this at this point. So my second point after that one is discrimination is still alive and well. I don't have a funny anecdote for this one. I'm sorry. I couldn't come up with anything good. So let's talk about pregnancy discrimination. This is gender discrimination because it does only affect women. And it is illegal. And this is actually a story of mine. So I have two children. My son is 14 and my daughter is 7. I graduated in 2006 with my engineering degree and started applying for jobs. There were 2 companies that I really applied for and got good interviews with while I was pregnant in 2007. And the first one, I was interviewing. They really liked me. I got the offer. And then I let them know I was pregnant. And then suddenly, for some reason, they pulled this offer. The second one was a company where I had been interviewing. It was going pretty well. They knew I was pregnant during the interview process. And the lady sat me down at the end and she said, I like you. I think you'd be a good employee, but your maternity leave is just too inconvenient for the team right now, so I'm going to go with somebody else. This is one of my favorite stories. Favorite. So this is something that a story that I was told to by a friend. She had been interviewing for technical positions locally, and she had interviewed at this particular company that did not have women. And the hiring manager really liked her. He said, "You are perfect for this job. Unfortunately, I just don't know how my team would handle having diversity." So for some reason, he had so little faith that his team of all men could handle having the other gender in the room that he was not willing to take that chance and hire the perfect candidate. He chose to hire a man instead. So when I was practicing this talk before I made the slides, again, I have a 7-year-old daughter. I cannot say the phrase "let it go" without thinking of this song. So here you go. So why don't we report it? This is a question I get asked a lot, especially when I recount my personal story, right? So we have two options with this. We can choose to let it go, or we can choose to take it to court. If we let it go, it goes away, right? We can pretend it didn't happen. We can pretend we didn't feel really shitty about it when it happened. And we can find a company that does not devalue us in that way, right? If we choose to take it to court, we may or may not win. It's hard to prove discrimination. It's hard to prove hostile work environments, et cetera, unless you have very well documented stuff, right? So you could be taking months and months of your life when you just want a program, you just want to be a productive member of a company, and instead you're taking all of your emotional strength, funding, the money that you should be using to support your family, to try and bring a company to justice. And at the end, regardless of whether you win or lose, you could be blacklisted, because that company could go around and say, "That was bullshit. We never did anything like that to that woman. That is crazy. She's a crazy person. You do not want that kind of person in your company. She'll bring you down." And most of the time when we look at it, we decide it's not worth it. So number 3 is definitely more subtle. We're talking about unconscious bias. This is the semi-official definition, but basically bias is what we are looking at when we're looking at stereotypes that you don't even realize you have. And they are about the same in both men and women. The ones that specifically hit us hard here in technology is the unconscious bias that associates men with leadership more and men with technology more. And I believe they're both at about 70. So if 50 would be equal, they're about at 70 towards men. So this is my anecdote for this one. So obviously this is the opposite side of those biases. This is looking at women as being part of the home and looking at women as caregivers, right? And so that has a backlash for men, especially men who want to be taken seriously as fathers. So who can tell me, raise your hand if you're a father. Okay. Raise your hand if it gets really frustrating when people assume you're incompetent because you're male. Right? I mean, it's crazy to think that normally rational men who can go out, who can have awesome jobs, who can be loving husbands, but the baby will probably catch fire if they are left with it for more than 30 minutes by themselves. That is ridiculous, right? And it holds men to this weird, poor standard. And standard and does not to really reach their potential as fathers without having to go through other people's judgments and dealing with other people's attitudes around it. And that's the same thing that happens with women in engineering and women in leadership. So this story was told to me by a friend who was a VP of engineering at a tech company, and she was amazing. I really like her. She's way more calm than I am, which I really like in people. But she has a technical background, and obviously she's a leader. But what she told me is that when she's in meetings with her team, they constantly talk over her. They constantly act like what she's saying isn't important. And she feels like they do not give her the respect that she deserves. So I'd like everybody to think about the VP of engineering in their companies. How many of them are men? Raise your hand if you have a VP of engineering who is a man. Okay. So one would assume, when I was thinking about this earlier, I was thinking about the stereotypical VP of engineering. Again, unconscious bias, right? I'm thinking an older man, right? Who's very talented, a good leader, very strong. And I could not, for the life of me, imagine that stereotypical male leader being in a room with mostly male engineers and having those male engineers break that hierarchy, talk over him, talk down to him, and be condescending. That just, if they are competent, obviously there are incompetent people, but if they are competent like this woman was, that wouldn't happen. And you know what happened? That woman left engineering, because it was not worth her fighting that battle every single day. And we lost amazing talent. So I have another volunteer who has been a programmer for about 9 years. And she said that even though she's an awesome programmer, in general, she likes where she works. It's really frustrating that every time that somebody new is brought in, or every time a customer walks through the door, they assume that she's the secretary. And they ask her to find an engineer or find the person in charge because they think that she is just the gatekeeper. That person is also looking at leaving technology. And that brings us to, who's heard this phrase before? In terms of this, death by 1,000 cuts. And that reason is why women leave technology, because it isn't one reason. It's 1,000 reasons. It isn't just discrimination. It isn't just that there's some creepy people out there, right? It's that every day women are fighting these battles. They're fighting to be heard. They're fighting to be taken seriously. And they are not always getting that. They are dealing with microaggressions. They're dealing with people thinking they don't know what they're talking about solely because of their gender, or maybe they're more soft-spoken. Maybe they wear girly clothes, whatever it might be. They have long hair. Women with long hair are taken less seriously than women with short hair. It's a crazy, weird bias. But what this means is that women aren't leaving because of one thing, and that means that there's not an easy fix, but that doesn't mean that we can't fix it if we all try. So I know everybody likes action. I was informed I have to have a call to action, not by New Relic, of course, but by others who said if you're giving a talk, there must be action. You can't, again, just leave everybody depressed and sad. So obviously, one of the things that you can do is you can volunteer or mentor at organizations like Chick Tech or Girls Inc., Girl Develop It, Women Who Code. A lot of these, we especially take any gender. We love all people who want to give back and want to help our population do better. You can donate. We like money. You can also mentor women around you, regardless of your gender. This isn't a women's problem, right? This isn't something that, women aren't doing something right. Women should try harder. Women should be less sensitive. If anybody says that to me, by the way, if you should ever tell me that women should be less sensitive, I'm just going to punch you. So just be prepared. Just like, I don't know, be in that stance. Yeah. But regardless of your gender, you can absolutely look around and you can find women with promise and you can help mentor them. You can introduce them to the people that they should be meeting. You should bring them into meetings that they may not otherwise be in. You should invite them to exclusive after parties that they may be able to, get their name out there and be an expert at. And you can listen, understand, and believe stories like what you heard today. Because most women that I've spoken to have a story like this. They rarely tell it because deep down, a lot of times they feel like it's their fault and they're not getting the support to make them feel like it's an industry issue, because so many times it is an industry issue, almost always, right? And if you can just listen to their stories and you can empathize and you can give them that support, you can be the person that helps them to not leave engineering. So thank you. Here's some information. If you want to follow me, it's not very exciting, but you can follow Chick Tech. You can also find Chick Tech on Facebook. And Chick Tech Portland also has a pretty active meetup. So thank you for listening.